there! Every day without fail, you take time out of your busy schedules to stop and connect with us here at the JIS. Thanks for that. We have another good program lined up for you today. This, of course, is Jamaica Magazine with yours truly, Audrey Williams. It's budget season, so you know we have to discuss some financial matters. Right now, though, we take a break and return with the news of the day.
The 2014-2015 fiscal year is here. Come April 8 to 10, the Standing Finance Committee of Parliament will consider the estimates. Tune in as the Finance Minister opens the budget debate on April 17. Dr. Peter Phillips will be followed by the Opposition Spokesman on Finance on April 22 and Government and Opposition members on April 23. The Opposition Leader will make his contribution on April 24 and the Prime Minister makes her presentation on April 29. The budget debate will close on April 30 with the Finance Minister. It's the 2014-2015 budget debate. Stay informed and keep watching Jamaica Magazine.
Good day, I'm Caroline Brown-Thompson and this is your JIS News for Monday, April 7. Jamaica and Venezuela are set to forge greater ties in matters of trade and commerce. This was revealed Sunday as Prime Minister Portia Simpson Miller and members of her cabinet met with a Venezuelan delegation, including the General Secretary of PetroCaribe, Bernardo Alvarez. While indicating that there were no new developments regarding the PetroCaribe agreement, the Prime Minister said a number of other important initiatives were being discussed.
Venezuela is looking to be engaged in terms of trade with us, and we are to identify areas as well that we can trade with Venezuela. And we did not discuss just trade with Jamaica, but trade with our CARICOM region.
The Venezuelan delegation was on a two-day working visit to the island and departed Sunday night. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Simpson Miller is asserting that it's time for a deepening of intra-regional trade in the Caribbean and building new trade networks in the global export markets. She was addressing last Thursday's opening of Expo 2014 at the National Arena. Mrs. Simpson Miller said there was no option but to fully integrate the economy into the global value chains for production and the delivery of goods and services.
The net effect of this is that the Jamaican economy will become more open to greater levels of inward investments and international business. This can have a transformative effect on the local business landscape, generating new opportunities for local businesses of all sizes and creating more jobs.
The four-day expo witnessed a record number of over 600 buyers, including about 200 international buyers from 28 countries. A grand farmers market offering some 80,000 pounds of produce for sale was introduced as a new feature of this year's trade event. $3.6 million has been spent to construct a rainwater harvesting system at the Arbuthnot Gallimore High School in Alexandria, St. Anne to deal with the school community's water woes. Speaking at the commissioning ceremony recently, Water Minister Robert Pickersgill said it was part of a major rainwater harvesting project being carried out by the Rural Water Supply Limited.
Rural Water Supply Limited is undertaking repairs to these catchment and storage tanks at a cost of just under 50 million Jamaican dollars to benefit 30,000 persons in several parishes, particularly in the central and western parts of the island that are experiencing severe drought.
This is the third rainwater harvesting facility to be provided at a school, with two previously installed at the Chatsworth Primary and Maldon High Schools in St. James. The National Council on Drug Abuse, NCDA, is to expand its education program into 10 childcare facilities. The Council's Resistance Education Against Drugs and HIV/AIDS Read Plus program seeks to give teenagers greater access to support and reliable information aimed at preventing drug abuse and risky sexual practices. Executive Director of the NCDA, Michael Tucker, says the intervention program is in keeping with the Ministry of Youth and Culture's mandate to upgrade childcare institutions.
National Council on Drug Abuse seeks to be an active stakeholder in the process to improve the outcomes of children in care.
The extension of the Council's program into the child care facilities follows its poster competition, which targeted the youth of these institutions. At the competition's recent awards ceremony, a number of entries received prizes. An entry from the Jamaica Christian Boys Home in St. Andrew was singled out for creativity and awarded a consolation prize. And finally, 25 of Jamaica's outstanding young people received the Prime Minister's Youth Award for Excellence this year in a ceremony at Jamaica House Sunday. The 2014 recipients, who range in ages from 15 to 24, were selected from a pool of 41 nominees drawn from rural and urban areas with varying social backgrounds. Prime Minister Portia Simpson Miller commended the young men and women on their successes, adding that they serve as fitting examples of what should be commonplace among our youth.
These young people dared to be different. These are the young people who did not surrender to negative influences. They were not daunted by swimming upstream, and they were not distracted from their goals in life. They did not fear the tides and waves. Indeed, they were propelled by them.
The awardees were recognized for their work in various areas such as community service and volunteerism, entrepreneurship, scientific innovation, agriculture, excellence in sports, academic achievement, and social activism. And that's it for JIS News Today. I'm Caroline Brown-Thompson. Thanks for watching.
Last week, before government laid out the new national budget, the Prime Minister, who's by the way also the Minister of Sport, inked a deal that brightens the future of Sabina Park. But cricket fans aren't the only ones who should be excited about the developments coming out of Jamaica House in the last week. Samantha Allen explains.
Prime Minister lauds Jamaicans for supporting the economic reform program.
We thank Jamaicans for their patience, sacrifice, and support.
Exporters urged to take advantage of Brand Jamaica and illuminating developments for Sabina Park. PM signs MOU for lighting project for the cricket ground. You're watching Jamaica House Weekly. I'm Samantha Allen. Prime Minister Portia Simpson Miller has thanked Jamaicans for their patience, sacrifice and support as the government continues the economic reform program to get the country out of debt and grow the economy. She added that amid the scarcity of resources, government was doing all it could to assist the most vulnerable.
We'll stay the course, but we're keeping in front of us the most vulnerable and the poor. And I know the pain. I feel it every day. All I'm saying is that they were very good last financial year. They stuck with us, and I'm just asking them for a while longer. We don't know what it is going to be, but you know we do not have much fiscal space.
The Prime Minister was speaking after the ceremonial opening of Parliament last Thursday. Her administration's plans for the 2014-2015 parliamentary year were outlined in the throne speech delivered by the Governor-General. And the Prime Minister and her team have delivered on a plan to provide affordable housing for workers in the sugar and tourism sectors. 63 persons got houses in Hamden Trelawney at a cost of $1.77 million under the first phase of the First Step Homes program. The Prime Minister urged beneficiaries to transform the houses into homes.
Make them special places for your families and especially for your children. I urge you new homeowners to develop and get involved in community leadership organizations.
Under the First Step Homes program, 600 houses will be built annually over 5 years for NHT contributors who earn between $7,500 and $10,000 per week.
It is with great pleasure that I declare Expo Jamaica 2014 open.
Prime Minister Portia Simpson Miller doing the honors at the 4-day event which was held at the National Arena in Kingston. The expo provided a platform for 240 local entities to showcase their products and services. The Prime Minister urged stakeholders to work together to identify niche markets while increasing global competitiveness in order to boost Jamaica's manufacturing and export sectors. Participants were also urged to exploit the benefits of Brand Jamaica.
The growing global market demand for our foods and beverages, fashion, fine art and craft, which are in high demand by overseas markets.
And with much emphasis being placed on sport, the Prime Minister signed a memorandum of understanding between the governments of Jamaica and India to implement the Sabina Park lighting project. $2.1 million is being provided by the Indian government, while the Jamaican government, through the Tourism Enhancement Fund, is contributing an additional $65 million Jamaican dollars to the project. The 3-month project will ensure that there's proper lighting at the island's premier cricket pitch so that night matches can be held.
Sport is the most powerful, unifying force in the entire world, rivaled only by entertainment, music, and the different cultures of the nations of the world.
Meanwhile, the government is embarking on a number of measures to develop the sport industry. The sporting facilities of 23 high schools will be upgraded during this financial year.
We will also launch very shortly the Athletes Insurance Plan, which will allow for 1,500 of our athletes who are in a national development program to be insured, and to also provide them with the kind of screening that would be required to ensure that we don't have some of the accidents that normally take place.
Visionary, philanthropist, defender of the poor, Prime Minister extraordinaire. That's how Prime Minister Portia Simpson Miller has been described by the Confederation of Parliamentarians of the Americas, COPA. Mrs. Simpson Miller was honored at a recent meeting of COPA's Executive Committee. The citation presented to the Prime Minister noted her ascension to Jamaica's highest political office, her service as a cabinet minister, and praised her for being a performance-oriented high achiever. And that's it for this week's edition of Jamaica House Weekly. Come next week, we'll bring you another roundup of the activities from the office of the Prime Minister.
So by now, you've probably seen many reports about the national budget for the 2014-2015 financial year. That budget wasn't crafted in isolation. It's a result of well-planned strategies to make Jamaica somewhere you and I want to live, work, raise families, and do business. That strategic approach to running the country isn't new. And in the spirit of budget season, today we begin a 1-week review of government's strategy in the last fiscal year, starting with the #1 goal: fiscal prudence and a credible economic program.
Fiscal prudence and the pursuit of a credible economic program. That was the first of 5 strategic priorities for the government from April 1, 2013 to March 31, 2014. The goal was to craft and implement programs that would reform the economy, contain public expenditure, and place Jamaica on a path to economic stability and growth. It was mission accomplished for the 2013-2014 financial year on the strategic priority #1.
Jamaica's application for a 4-year extended fund facility with the IMF was approved in the amount of 615.4 million SDR, special drawing rights, or approximately $958 million.
That announcement ended months of negotiations with the multilateral agency and marked the start of work to meet the quarterly quantitative targets and structural benchmarks outlined in the IMF agreement. As a result, Jamaica passed all 3 IMF tests in June, September, and December 2013, making way for this familiar statement.
The execution of the government budget for 2013-14 has been broadly on track. Overall policy implementation under the program remains strong.
Confirmations like that from the IMF led to the country receiving a total of $345.8 million under the agreement as at March 19, 2014. More money will be disbursed to Jamaica if it meets the January to March targets. An official announcement is expected in a few weeks. Until then, the Economic Program Oversight Committee, which was set up to oversee the IMF agreement, has said it's pleased with the government's performance so far.
I see the government doing what we said they must do. I think it is up to us now in the private sector, myself included, to do what we think is good business, which is to invest and to look out for opportunities.
The expansion in the economy for the fiscal year is helping to shore up investor confidence. After 6 consecutive quarters of decline, the economy recorded almost 1% growth in the July to September quarter and 1.4% from October to December. Once the figures are tallied, a similar expansion is expected for the January to March 2014 period. Jamaica's net international reserves NIR also increased in the fiscal year. The Bank of Jamaica reported that at the end of February, the NIR stood at over $1 billion. Single-digit inflation targets were also achieved, and the BOJ is expecting that inflation for the entire fiscal year will fall between 8.5 and 10.5%. Jamaica's debt was also reduced. The government announced that the debt to gross domestic product GDP ratio should fall by about 8% to 139%. The passing grades from the IMF in the 2013-2014 fiscal year positioned the country to receive additional money from the Inter-American Development Bank IDB and the European Union EU. In September 2013, Jamaica received a $951 million grant from the EU for direct budgetary support and $2.6 billion in grant funding to improve services in the health sector. 2 loan agreements valued at $140 million were also signed with the IDB in February 2014.
We are very cognizant that we need to continue our performance in all aspects of the program, and particularly in relation to the strengthening of our financial management capabilities within the government of Jamaica as a whole in order to facilitate these funds. There are no new taxes in this country.
As he opened the budget debate, the finance minister announced that for the fiscal year, steps would instead be taken to simplify the tax system, streamline the tax incentive program, and promote compliance.
It will involve legislative changes and greater powers for the tax authorities to go after the taxes due and secure it from the persons from whom those taxes are due.
The Revenue Administration Amendment Act, which was passed by the lower house of Parliament in June 2013, allowed the Tax Administration Jamaica to implement mandatory electronic filing of tax returns for 3 main categories of persons effective March 1, 2014. Also, as at that date, self-employed persons started using the single SO3 form as opposed to multiple forms to file their tax returns. Omnibus legislation, which was passed in the House of Representatives on November 19, 2013, also bolstered the tax reform agenda. They supported a policy of granting waivers to the primary inputs to production, those things that are used to produce goods or services.
The new generalized regime will allow for uniformly reduced rates for all tax-compliant investment bodies and corporate entities and individuals involved in productive activity. This should also serve to enhance the competitiveness of the overall economy.
The passage of the omnibus legislation, particularly the Fiscal Incentives Act, also made it possible for unregulated companies and self-employed individuals to get an employment tax credit once they file and pay their tax returns by March 15. And to regulate charitable organizations, the Charities Act was passed by the House of Representatives in October 2013. As the government pursued a credible economic program in the 2013-2014 financial year, it had to ensure that businesses were able to grow and develop. The Development Bank of Jamaica DBJ therefore made more money available to the micro, small and medium-sized enterprises so they could expand their businesses and create jobs.
What we want to do is to encourage businesses to get into the investment, and we're seeing good signs.
As the government focused on being financially responsible, it also placed special emphasis on the privatization of key state entities while improving public sector service delivery. In September 2013, the DBJ announced that Wallingford Coffee Company was sold to AIC International Investments Limited in a deal worth about $4 billion. 3 entities were also shortlisted for the divestment of the Kingston Container Terminal, and enterprise teams were established for the Norman Manley International Airport, the Jamaica Railway Corporation, and Caymanis-Track Limited. On the issue of public sector delivery,
public officers must improve their skills in public procurement, and at the same time this system must be improved.
And so the government stated its intention to revamp the public procurement system to achieve greater levels of transparency, efficiency and equity. For pension reform, the government said the process would involve public sector workers contributing to their pensions. The reform should be implemented by April 2016. And through the Civil Service Establishment Order 2012 resolution, 3,000 vacant posts were removed from the public sector. The 2013-2014 financial year was a success for the government. By being financially responsible while embarking on a realistic economic program, strategic priority number 1 was accomplished. The mission will continue for the 2014-2015 financial year so that Jamaica can become the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business.
I'm Empress. My sisters, my queens, my mothers, my daughters, my girls, my women. I am begging you, stay away from crime and violence. Don't risk your soul. Don't risk your life. We have a strong history of crime and violence, and it's never paid. You're the backbone of the family, of the future, of our generation, of our country. Save the children. Set an example. A gang is a dead end.
A message from the Ministry of National Security.
We're still firmly in the financial realm. Right now, it's time to continue our series examining government's economic reform program. Today, it's about developing the infrastructure to support the agriculture, energy, and tourism sectors.
In pursuit of our objective of economic and employment growth, we are seeking to resuscitate those traditional economic activities in which we have already established competence and expertise capable of meeting world competition.
Sustained economic growth, job creation, poverty reduction, and improved living standards are the goals of the government's economic reform program. Today we explore part 2 of the infrastructure projects in pursuit of these goals in the areas of agriculture, energy, and tourism. One of the major initiatives devised to grow the agriculture sector, and by extension the economy, is the development of 9 agri-parks. In total, 8,000 acres of idle government land will be put under production, creating jobs for about 5,000 Jamaicans and reaping an estimated $4.2 billion in earnings by the end of 2015. $8 million, that's over 800 million Jamaican dollars, has already been pumped into getting 7 of the 9 parks on their way to full operation.
We're concentrating our efforts on this as a flagship, but it's a holistic approach that we are taking towards bringing down that 900-odd million US import bill and upping our exports.
A critical factor in improving the country's competitiveness is lowering the cost of energy to make production cheaper. The Office of Utilities Regulation recently announced that Hong Kong firm Energy World International was the selected bidder to construct a 360 megawatt combined energy plant. it should reduce Jamaica's oil import bill.
And that project is on stream, it's on target. We are making sure that not a day slips, and that come January 2016, we'll see a significant reduction, more than 30%, in the price of electric power.
To support that, construction of a 115 megawatt renewable energy plant is also in the works. Over time, this would satisfy 12.5% of Jamaica's electricity needs.
That 150 megawatts of renewable energy will also provide some 400,000 megawatt hours of electricity per year, and will save Jamaica the equivalent of over 700,000 barrels of imported oil per year, amounting to $55 million annually.
At the same time, government is ensuring that we save more money by conserving. To reduce the energy bill within the public sector, a $2.65 million contract was signed last December for 4 state entities to be fitted with modern and efficient air conditioning systems. It's part of a $20 million loan agreement for an energy efficiency and conservation program aided by the Inter-American Development Bank.
All sectors of the society, private sector, academia, churches, or NGOs, CBOs, and civil society are being also challenged to come on board and to help Jamaica use energy wisely and to unleash the productive capacity of the country.
Tourism likewise plays an important role in government's economic reform program, and there are clear signs that the policy is working. Last year, the island reached a historic milestone when it welcomed its 2 millionth stopover visitor. The sector also earned just over $2 billion as at December 2013. To keep those gains going, the sector is benefiting from over $200 million in capital expenditure. Other projects include market diversification and new airlift agreements to increase visitor arrivals from areas such as China, Russia, and Latin America.
Our government has been making a concerted effort to develop new markets for our tourism industry by relaxing its visa requirements for nationals of several countries in Latin America, Russia, and Eastern Europe. This strategy bore fruit almost immediately, producing double-digit performance in a relatively short period of time and demand for travel that has brought new airlift from those markets.
Government has meanwhile courted infrastructure development investments like the 130-room Marriott Business Hotel for New Kingston. Construction has started and should be completed in 2015.
We want to broaden the visitor experience in Kingston in a way that best represents and positions it as a cultural capital of the Caribbean.
Other developments include the upgraded 226-room Braco Hotel in Trelawney, which is now under the management of Europe's third largest hotel chain, Melia Hotels International. The resort town of Ochiris will see major transformation with a $400 million multi-agency improvement project. And there's a $44.2 million project to repair the Harbour Street Craft Market in Montego Bay. Agriculture, energy, and tourism, all important aspects of the government's economic reform program. The government of Jamaica, going for growth, staying the course, and transforming the economy.
But for you, the window of opportunity to find out about other exciting things happening in the country is still open. Enter our web portal at jis.gov.jm. We've also got a YouTube channel. Our social media links should also be coming on screen right about now. Use those to sound off about our programs, and if 140 characters is not enough for you, send an email to jamaicamagazine@jis.gov.jm. I'm Audrey Williams. This has been Jamaica Magazine. See you next time.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.